The Middle East is often described as one of the most unstable regions in the world. Wars, uprisings, foreign interventions, and endless headlines of conflict dominate our screens. But why does tension here seem permanent? Is it religion? Is it oil? Is it ancient hatred? Or are the real causes far more hidden, buried beneath history, borders, and power struggles that most people never see? Today, we uncover the hidden causes of Middle East tension, not the headlines, but the roots. Root 1. The myth of ancient hatreds. Discussions of conflict in the Middle East are frequently framed around the idea of ancient hatreds, the belief that the region's violence is the result of timeless religious and ethnic antagonisms. This explanation is not only simplistic, but historically misleading. The majority of tensions shaping the contemporary Middle East are not rooted in antiquity. They emerged from modern political and imperial transformations, particularly those of the late 19th and 20th centuries. Treating current conflicts as primordial obscures the forces that actually produced them. For long periods, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish communities lived within shared political systems, most notably under the Ottoman Empire. These societies were hierarchical and imperfect, yet religious difference alone did not constitute the principal driver of large-scale political violence. Identity existed, but it was not rigidly politicized. The decisive rupture came with the collapse of imperial structures and the expansion of European influence into the region. As established systems of governance disintegrated, they were replaced by externally imposed political arrangements that prioritized administrative convenience and strategic interest over social cohesion. In this context, religious and sectarian identities were gradually transformed into political tools. Divisions such as those between Sunni and Shia Islam, historically present but often contained, were redefined as markers of political allegiance and instruments of competition within newly formed states. This process did not make religion more significant in itself. Rather, it altered how religion functioned within power relations. Sectarian identity became a means through which authority was asserted, opposition organized, and external influence justified. The persistent description of Middle Eastern conflicts as ancient or irrational diverts attention from these structural origins. It minimizes the role of colonial intervention, state formation, and geopolitical rivalry, while implying that instability is an unavoidable feature of the region's culture. Such narratives carry significant consequences. By portraying conflict as inevitable, they reduce the urgency of political accountability and limit the scope of possible solutions. Understanding Middle East tensions therefore requires a shift in perspective, away from assumptions of timeless hostility and toward an examination of the modern historical processes that reshape the region. The roots of today's instability are not found in distant religious pasts, but in the political transformations of the modern era, where empire, power, and intervention redefined identity and conflict. Root 2. Colonialism and artificial borders. Narrator. If modern Middle East tensions are not the product of ancient hostility, the next question becomes unavoidable. Where, then, do they originate? A critical starting point lies in the period of European colonial expansion and the political reordering that followed the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. For centuries, much of the Middle East had been governed through imperial systems that, while unequal, allowed for flexible forms of authority and local autonomy. These arrangements did not depend on rigid borders or centralized nation-states. Identity was layered, tribal, religious, regional, rather than fixed within territorial lines. This system unraveled during and after the First World War. As the Ottoman Empire disintegrated, Britain and France moved quickly to secure control over its former territories. Through diplomatic agreements such as the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916, European powers divided the region into zones of influence, drawing borders that reflected imperial interests rather than social realities. These borders were often arbitrary. They separated communities with long-standing cultural and economic ties, while forcing rival groups into the same political units. In many cases, newly created states lacked a shared national identity or historical precedent. The consequences were profound. States such as Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan emerged not as organic political communities, but as administrative constructions. Their survival depended less on popular legitimacy than on coercion, patronage, and external support. Before we continue, don't forget to give us a thumb up, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get notified on our subsequent educative videos. Also, don't forget to share as this would educate more audience and help the channel grow. Colonial authorities frequently governed through indirect rule, empowering certain elites, sects, or minorities to maintain control. While effective in the short term, this strategy deepened social divisions and embedded inequality into state institutions. When formal colonial rule eventually ended, these fragile states inherited borders and political systems ill-equipped to manage internal diversity. Independence did not erase colonial structures. It transferred them to new ruling classes. As a result, many post-colonial governments relied on authoritarian measures to preserve unity. Dissent was suppressed, political participation limited, and opposition framed as a threat to national survival. Over time, unresolved tensions, rooted in colonial state formation, resurfaced as civil conflict, secessionist movements, and chronic instability. Thus, the borders that define the modern Middle East are not neutral lines on a map. They are historical artifacts of empire, shaping political behavior, identity, and conflict to this day. To understand contemporary instability, it is therefore essential to recognize that many Middle Eastern states were born not through collective self-determination, but through colonial design, and that this legacy continues to structure the region's political life. See you in the next part of the video explaining other root problems of the Middle East. Thanks for watching.